Hey y'all, welcome back to The Inner. Today I'm joined by my brother, Joseph Wilson.
Hello, hello.
Howdy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, man. Awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to have you on. If you could introduce yourself to the audience, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Joseph Wilson. I live in Auckland, New Zealand. Um, happily married. Been married for 15 years. I have three daughters, 9, 7, and 5. And we're all about community and family here in New Zealand at the moment, building family with a bunch of people. And then I'm coaching people into deeper understanding of their assignments and their purpose. And that's where most of my time goes. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, if you could kind of narrate for us and tell us, like, what's been your journey? Uh, where did you start? How'd you end up in the world that you're in now?
Yeah, so I grew up in India, South India, and I grew up around church, like an Anglican Presbyterian style church with a pipe organ and all of that good stuff. And I remember going to church as a kid and watching people sing joyful songs with a really sad face. And that did not jive with me, you know. So we moved to New Zealand when I was 11 years old. And as I grew older, I just left all of that. I didn't want anything to do with church or with God. And obviously, I never knew God at that time. I just knew of him. But one day I get invited to a Pentecostal church, and that was a scary experience for me because everyone was happy and dancing, and I didn't think you were allowed to do that in church. And the guys that were leading the worship, they looked drunk. They were drunk in the Holy Spirit, but I was convinced that they were on drugs or something. You know, the lights were dim, everyone's having a good time. And I remember a few weeks later going back to that church, and I'd partied all night and I was still tipsy from the night before. And I was sitting in the back seat and questioning myself, why did I drive here still drunk to this church? And I had a supernatural experience with the Holy Spirit. I sobered up, and that kind of began my path of there is a God, he is real, he wants a relationship with me. What do I want to do about it? You know? So, yeah.
That's powerful. So when did the shift happen from your journey to, let's just say, charismatic slash Pentecostal to the sonship or Christian mystical field?
Yeah, so when that happened, there were two things going on. One was the church I was in was very revival focused, and so we were seeing miracle signs, wonders, gemstones, jewels falling in worship, and angel feathers and gold dust, all that kind of stuff, and then deliverance, and so we were seeing all of this healings and stuff. But for me, every night for a season, as I'm going to bed, I would just feel God pulling me into Him as a son, and he'd be like, I love you, I want you, you know, come. And my soul was rejecting that love because I didn't feel like I deserved it. And so that was a really hard little time for me of, do I want to allow myself to be loved when I don't feel like I deserve it? And it was about 2 or 3 weeks of a wrestle. So my whole early journey, even though I was doing the charismania thing, was actually developing an understanding of Father and love and walking with Him. And I didn't realize that till 2017, 18, 19, when guys like Chris Blackaby came into my life and I heard them preach about this. And I was like, this has been my life this whole time, you know. And so it was like my first 5 years, I learned Pentecostal Christianity, and then went deeper into understanding the kingdom, and then went deeper into understanding that I'm a son in that kingdom. And now, you know, 2025, that whole function looks very different. Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. So how would you let's just talk about like your personal relationship with God right now. So how would you describe your intimacy with the Father currently?
Yeah. So the change, I guess, was I got to know him like a baby, and I enjoyed being a baby. And then as I'm growing up, it was like, oh, there's some responsibility for you, and I will teach you how to carry that. And now I feel like I'm in a phase where I'm carrying a lot more responsibility than I ever have. And so I would say I've matured. I don't know if I'd say like a late teen or something like that, but that's what it feels like. I've learned a few things, and I have freedom to do a few things. There's still a lot more to learn, obviously, but I'm no longer just a baby relying on father doing everything. It's like I'm in a beautiful place of co-laboring, if you want to call it, co-creating. And yeah.
That's awesome. So if you were able to give an introduction to what the love of God or the love of the Father really looks like for someone that's new, what does that look like?
Unconditional acceptance, which is really hard for the pattern of this world that's programmed us. It's really hard to receive that because we've been trained to earn all the time. And even in Christianity, we don't realize, but subtly we're trying to earn more, trying to earn this love through doing the right thing and reading your Bible and praying. We don't do it out of intimacy. We do it to try and gain intimacy. And so if this earning thing is the biggest enemy, I feel, for most of us, because love is a free gift. His love is a free gift. And allowing yourself to just receive that was the biggest challenge for me. And so I would make that the focus, like, hey, let God love you. What does that look like? Well, as you engage him, pray prayers like, Father, I want to know your love. I give you full permission to father me into this love. And I think that should always be the origin, because there's so much security in love that you can't get in anything else,
I agree wholeheartedly. Like, I can't speak for New Zealand, but I know in the States, one of the things, like talking about that feeling of unworthiness or the feeling or the mentality that says I have to earn everything that I get. It's like the effects of being in a capitalistic society. Not saying capitalism's all bad, but that in its way starts to frame your mind to say everything that I get must be earned. So the idea of God giving us something that we don't deserve nor earn goes against the programming that pretty much structures our whole world or our society.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Even the idea that you're allowed to just be with God without getting anything.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the relationship is the reward.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like the presence is the prosperity.
Yeah. Yeah. And abundance and everything that you'd ever need is sorted, Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And sadly, a lot of religion just follows the pattern of the world. And so we start doing all these things to try and attain something and get something. And then we measure our intimacy based on what we got or didn't get, and play this hamster wheel game that we don't have to play as sons of God.
Yeah. One of the things that I taught on recently, it was a short snippet I did at someone else's conference, asked me to speak. And it was talking about how one of the issues that we have is that oftentimes when people transition into the kingdom, we keep them in a center consciousness, which
Yeah.
means that the mentality or the way that they see themselves doesn't change. We just give them a
Yeah.
different job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like a sinner and a servant is of the same mentality. They're both trying to earn favor.
Yeah.
They both don't think they're worthy.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
And like that famous Einstein quote that all of us quote, where it says that a problem can't be solved from the same measure of consciousness that created it, is that if this low level thinking, this low level understanding of myself is what got me into all this trouble and all this chaos, that's where I have to fix the problem at. I have to see myself the way God sees me rather than the way that I see myself, or even that I think I should see myself. Right? There's almost like this it's almost like a dogma around identity that says you're not allowed to be more.
Yeah. Yeah. The pattern of this world. Totally agree with you. I think that even our culture, depending on where we grew up, plays such a big factor. So being someone that grew up in India and New Zealand, I can see the differences in both the cultures. And in India, you got to be humble. You play that part, like stay humble, don't say much about yourself. Unless you're called into something, keep quiet. Like there is almost like a subtle shame of owning your greatness or owning who you are. And then in New Zealand, the difference is that if you start stepping into greatness, someone comes to chop you down. There's like a real big tall poppy syndrome here, So that's caused many Kiwis to become pioneers and they fight for that place and they do great things, but that's a small proportion because the culture generally likes to chop you down when you start becoming great, you know.
Yeah, it's like intimidation seeps
Yeah.
uh, in more than one way. Like sometimes, and I think part of that is how much we misunderstand what humility is, that
Yes.
we think we have to be nothing. It's like,
Yes.
would you insult God that much that you think he died for nothing?
Yeah.
You have to be something. You were worth dying for, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
God of all existence decided that his death was a necessary payment for your life. I think you're a little bit of something.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's similar in the States. Like in different sectors, like you see a bit of both. You have those that think that the natural state of humanity is nothing and subservience, and then there's the other group that's like, oh, this is a conquest. If you want the top spot, you have to outdo and outperform, and we're going to fight you for it. I was just
Mm.
talking to someone earlier today about the insecurities that run a lot of ministries, where everyone is viewed as a threat. Uh, and
Mm.
it doesn't have to be that way. Like one of the things, and you probably mirror this sentiment in a lot of different ways, but I don't like to maintain systems that I hate. So because I hate those systems, I don't participate in them. I don't perpetuate them.
Mm.
So it's like
Yeah.
I don't compete with anyone.
Yeah.
I understand that my place is something that can't be replaced or removed. So I outlast all my enemies. I don't have to
Yeah.
focus on them too much.
Yeah.
I'm going to be here. Hopefully, we get to be here together. If not, I'll outlast you. It's fine.
Sure. But I get you, and I understand it, and I agree with that. You know. Yeah.
So, still staying in the vein of like really knowing God, what does engaging God for you look like right now? Like, how do you really get in the presence? How do you maintain that relationship? Is it audible? Is it a bunch of prayer? Is it just keeping an awareness? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I went through a season where I was really frustrated that I didn't hear the audible voice of God because in my head at that time that was the ultimate height of spirituality. You know,
Hmm.
that was years ago now. But today it looks like whatever flows with Father, you know. And so the two things I try and make sure I do every day is when I wake up and when I go to sleep. I try and go to sleep engaging and I try and wake up engaging. And that's like a really low hanging fruit, a really easy, low barrier thing that I just do that in my bed, you know. And from there, sometimes it turns into visions, conversations, pulling out the Bible, reading certain scripture, or just prayer time, just tongues, or just singing and music, and it's always different. And so the expression looks very different, but the key for me is that the origin or the heart posture where I'm in full awareness of my oneness with God, of my connection with Him. That's the part that I'm most interested in, and whatever it looks like I'm okay with, you know.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Keeping space for the flexibility, not getting
Mm.
too grounded in any one thing. But I'd even say just the fact that you steward your sleep and your awakening, like that's powerful in itself. There's a lot of value there. Like I trained myself to explore the realms of the spirit just by telling myself what I would do while I was asleep.
Mm. Mm.
Like I would declare that over myself when I was first starting out. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep, but my spirit is gonna go sit and listen to the seven spirits. And then when I'd wake up, I would have memories of the conversations I had with them, and then I'd meditate on that for the whole day. So there's a lot of power in just stewarding your sleep and the first few moments of being awake. Like that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And so, like what you're saying, some mornings when you wake up with something, you know, I guess you're putting some language to some of my experience. And so then you're waking up to what you went to sleep with, and it's a beautiful time, you know. And then one of my other practices is just to look into the day. I like to look at my day and speak to my day. And that's always fun when you see things and then they happen, or you see things and you shift things and then it shifts the way you did it. And yeah.
That's powerful. Like, cause that puts like I'm someone that likes to practice the practical applications of this spiritual life that we're supposed to be having.
Mm.
So even something that sounds mundane to people that aren't paying attention, but that's one of the most powerful things you can do is gain enough wisdom to steward your life.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
like what you're doing. Like being able to, a lot of the Africans that I'm friends with, they call it commanding your morning.
Mm.
Start their day off by telling their day what it's allowed to be.
Mm.
And I remember hearing stories of people like Mama Jenkins, who was a
Yeah.
black woman that
Yeah.
Smith
Yeah.
Wigglesworth mentored. And she would pray all night. She only slept maybe an hour or two every day, if she slept at all. And while she was praying, she would see days in advance, so she knew what would happen.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I remember watching some of her clips. Amazing woman.
Yeah. Like you come to find out that the more of yourself that you give to God, the less of the other things you really need. It's like
Yeah.
sleep isn't actually a requirement if you're in the presence enough. If you're
Mm.
accessing glory, you enter into a rest, you enter into a sustenance that the rest of the stuff that you don't really need. It's like
Yeah.
normally I would need 8 hours of sleep, but because I'm in the presence so long, I can go a few days without taking a nap.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. And that's what makes it amazing, I guess, as you go deeper. How much are you willing to let go of the programming from this realm? And I've wrestled with that a lot in different ways. Part of me happy to go into the new, but then to let go of this programming and what I believed was necessary. It's an interesting journey as you let go to go. But
Yeah. So
mm.
when did I know you talked about experiencing the supernatural when you were a lot younger, but when did you start moving in the supernatural yourself?
Well, in terms of like miracle signs, wonders, my pastor would say, Mark 16, lay hands on the sick and they'll recover. And that time I was a door-to-door salesman, so I would go selling cable TV, and I decided to practice that. And I started to lay hands on people, and I'd sell them cable TV, and after that, cast out a demon or see them get healed. And those 4 years became like my Bible college.
Hmm.
I would practice hearing from the Lord, like, hey, which house is a good house for me to go to? I don't want to knock every door. Where is the sale? And I started to practice that. And sometimes I would feel danger, and I never understood that. I remember this one day I felt like I shouldn't go into this house, but I was like, oh, why am I feeling that? Let me just ignore that. I walk in, open the gate. When I turned around, a really big dog, came around the corner. And I remember jumping back out, and that was like the beginning of me going, "Oh wow, okay, I should start trusting what I'm sensing." And so the supernatural stuff began then, and every night, I don't know why I had this inclination to leave my curtains open, and I'd look out at the sky and just ask God to show me things. And I started having little experiences in my bedroom. All of these things just started to add layer on layer of my faith that I'm walking with Him. And it was practical, it was real, it wasn't someone else's theory. And I don't think I'd be walking with God like this if that was not the case. Especially in the early days. I don't think I would have gotten here if it wasn't that real. So yeah, supernatural began real. I think the difference then became how much I get to initiate. So when I first began, I thought, okay, he's going to initiate only, and I must wait. I must wait. I must wait. Then it became, hey, you can initiate too. I was like, oh, and then it became, oh, this goes both ways. And then he's like, I'm going to interrupt your day, and so the depth just started to increase, but the origin began straight away. Otherwise, I probably would not be here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. Is that something you still move in today? Like the healings, casting out demons, so on and so forth?
Well, this is going to sound really weird, right? Like, I had some amazing experiences, and then as I got deeper into the governance part, some of that stuff just kind of took a different form. Like the
Hmm.
laying on of hands then changed and then become as big a deal, or even in terms of the demonic stuff, training people on how to renew their mind and have no room to connect with things became more important than just me running around telling things to leave. And so it's still there. I just think it's found a new expression.
Yeah.
And depending on who I'm with, for some people, they're still more comfortable if I do it that way. So I still do it that way. But I found that now I'm learning how to move up and down the bridge depending on where people are at.
Yeah.
And so it's just changed form. Yeah. I'm sure that's the case for you, right?
Yeah. I do everything.
Yeah.
Like, because
Yeah.
I understand that. Like, I don't believe it's a testimony for the same people to need the same God to heal them over and over again or deliver them
Mm,
over and over again. I think
mm,
the greater testimony is immunity, that I
mm,
don't need to be healed because nothing can harm me. No
mm.
evil comes nigh my dwelling, or I don't have to be delivered. I don't have to have demons cast out of me every week because I've given no room for demonic activity in
Mm.
my temple, right? This
Yeah.
is a fully dedicated temple. Holy Spirit rules and reigns here. There's no space for opposite spirits.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's like I still believe in like casting out demons, healing the sick, raising the dead. But I couple that with a message that says you never have to be sick again. You don't have to
Yeah.
be demonized. You don't have to be broken. You're not arrogant if you don't have a flaw.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
you don't have to die. You can live for,
Yeah.
you couple it with the right gospel, that keeps me from having to heal the same people, deliver the same people, possibly raise the same people from the dead. It frees
Yeah.
me up.
Yeah.
And that message catches wings. More people start, you mean I don't ever have to be sick? Okay, well, look at that. I have community where people don't get sick. I'm
Yeah.
not praying for colds all the time and headaches all the
Yeah.
time. So I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah, and that maturing is what all of creation is groaning for. And I think the institution has not done us any favors to actually put pathways for people to mature and grow into the fullness.
Yeah. So, in your words, how would you describe the fullness?
Well, to my limited understanding, it's really it's hard for me to say that in English. Maybe I throw words out there, right? To be just like Father, to be just like Jesus. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. I think that statement is really a big deal. And even though that's true conceptually, for that to become true experientially, I think is really important. And when Jesus said, "The God of this world is coming and he has nothing in me," I think that understanding that he has nothing in me is also an important part, I think, of the fullness. The other part I focus on is really an individual divine design and the scroll or the days of my book, and which is different to everyone else's book, that you're walking out your path in total freedom and joy and love and purity while walking with others who are walking out their path in that, and you're able to maintain relational equity with all people. I think that that's also an important part of the fullness. So not just about what I'm doing and the scope of what I'm doing, but how I'm doing it and how I'm able to walk with anyone and everyone while doing it, which is something I've seen lacking even in the mystical space. I would say the relational health, the relational equity. When we
Mhm.
see Yeshua walk the earth, he's able to meet people where they're at and walk
Yeah.
with anyone and everyone and call out their stuff, but then go on the cross for them, and
Mhm.
it's this total freedom and expression of love. I think that would also be an important part of the fullness. Yeah.
Yeah. You said something real powerful I'd love for you to go into. Talk about the importance of divine relationships.
Yeah. When this journey began for me, I was like, God, what are we doing in my life? 2008, 9, and he said to me, I want to make you an example of a life that's totally yielded to me and what abundance looks like. But your biggest challenge is going to be relationships because everybody has free will. And looking back now, 16 years, that has been the case. Like the hardest thing in my life has been relationships and losing them and walking through hard times. So I'm a big believer in the fact that I'm a son of God, but my sonship is established in the context of the family of God. I don't believe that sonship can be established in loneliness, isolation, by yourself somewhere in the corner. If I'm a son in a family, then I have a family to be a son in the midst of. And I think that divine relationships are God's way of keeping us all healthy. and whole and safe. And so I like to look at it three ways. There's like I call them tribes, and there's three tribes I think everybody needs. We need a tribe where we belong, and they belong tribes like your family. They love you, they accept you wherever you're at, whatever you're like. You're chosen, you're celebrated. It's your free home, you know. And then there's a tribe that you birth. This is the family that you birth, you carry, and you carry people. It's like a natural family that comes out of you. You're like the dad or the mother, and you carry everybody, you know. And then the third tribe is the build with tribe, and these are the people that are on their maturing journey, and your peers, and you can exchange notes, and iron sharpens iron. And I think that these three facets keep someone healthy and whole. Yeah.
That's awesome. Who've been some of the people in your life that have really helped to steward you in your journey?
You know, when this all began, so my first pastor, who would still be like a spiritual father in my life, even though we're not so connected, he dramatically impacted me in understanding that I can walk with Father. And there were some sermons of his that I listened to 30 or 40 times on repeat, you know, and I received something, not just at a soul level, but a spiritual level and a physical level. So he was a big one there. His name is Rob DeLuca. I have a lot of love for him. And so he was one of the first. But when I was going through my transition, because I started to ask questions about the church system, I started to ask questions about the institution. You know, I read pagan Christianity, and I start, you know, like, oh, why are we doing this? And why are we doing that? And when I was doing that, I got in a lot of trouble because at that time, most of the people in my life were still church oriented. So during that time, I was like, God, I have no one in my country. You know, it felt like that. And I ended up overseas, and I met a man in New York. I ended up in New York City, and I met a man from Connecticut. And he just started to say all this stuff to me that, you know, it was like he pulled something out of me that it would have never gotten pulled out in New Zealand. And so it's amazing how Father has just beautifully sent me people who've been able to do that. And now I have a really good circle, starting from a German theologian who probably is not very mystical in his an expression, but he's geeked out on the kingdom, you know, and he's an amazing guy to walk with, all the way up to guys like Robbie Venter, who's a really good friend of mine who moves and all the stuff, you know. And then you got like Joseph Sturgeon and Marius, who I really value their honor and their wisdom and their, you know, their input into my life. And yeah, Chris Blackaby is another one, good friend. So these guys now suddenly have come into my life after I grew up and I didn't need them. Now they get to add to me, you know, and it's been awesome. Yeah.
I like that you said that, because that's been my experience too, is that once I no longer need people, that's when we're friends. That's when the connection finally happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, 3 years ago, I wanted you to mentor me. Now here you are asking me questions.
Yeah, totally, man. And I love that Father is so good at doing that with us, you know. So
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I do think we all need people to some capacity, because they can take us places that going alone just takes so much more time, and sometimes people don't make it going alone, you know.
Mm-hmm. What are some keys that you can give? That's probably a better way to say this, for stewarding these relationships, especially when there are philosophical or even theological differences.
Yeah. Well, so what happened in 2017 when I left the church system, I was like, God, then how do we build family? Like, what's the ecclesia? All of this journey began, you know, the ecclesia. And there was a guy who was a great kingdom teacher named Dub Alexander. And he would say this: the kingdom of God is familial in nature, governmental in structure. And that really hit me. You know, it's a family nature, but it's a governmental structure. And in most places, we've seen one or the other. A lot of family nature, no structure, no influence, no effect. Or a lot of governmental structure, no family nature, just a matter of time before it blows up. And so we started to build that kind of a community here. Family nature was the focus. And it took about 6 or 7 years to find the tribe that wanted to be there for one another, not just to do something or to pursue a task or create some kind of tribal doctrinal understanding, but just to choose one another. And so when I look at Jesus's life, Yeshua chooses all these disciples, and they have no doctrine to agree with him on. Right? He's way out of their paradigm. They have no transaction really to give him other than start the journey, but he chooses them. So my definition for that relational equity is I choose you and I give you the time, space, and freedom to choose me back. And I will risk you not choosing me back also, which is what I see in Jesus's life and Father's life. I've chosen you, but I give you time, space, and freedom to choose me back. Yeah.
That's powerful. Wow, that's powerful. I've chosen you and I give you space and time to even not choose me back.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've said that in different ways. It's probably the best way to say that. So I'm probably stealing that from now on. But like with certain relationships, it's like I've clashed with people on some things, and then I'm like, it's okay. I'm okay with them not liking me now. We'll be fine in a few years. And then a few years pass, and they're like, you might not have known this, but I was offended at that thing you said, but God just told me. I was like, I knew you'd come along eventually. It's okay. No harm, no foul. We're good now. Because I realized that I didn't always know the stuff that I know now.
Mm-hmm.
And like for other people, it's like, oh, everyone else is so wrong. I'm like, no, for me, I was so wrong.
Yeah.
And I just give that same grace to everyone else. It's like, oh, just because I know it now doesn't mean everyone else is just supposed to get this stuff today just because I get it. It's like, no, I got to give them space to grow, space to learn, and even put up with them fighting on me a little bit until they get it. Like those are signs of just not getting it yet.
Yeah. I remember 2014 listening to some mystical teachers, and I was just like, what the heck are you saying? You know, over my head. I was like, this. And then 2018, I'm like, oh, I get it. Okay. You know, and so, yeah, I understand, man. I totally get you.
Awesome. So talk about a little bit more in depth, because I love the community aspect that you mentioned, like establishing family and government. Talk about the importance of the governmental structure rather than having a religious structure.
Yeah. So after 6 or 7 years, which is probably last year, so 2017 to 2024, these people come around. And I'll just touch on this. So in 2020, I launched all this online stuff, and the community just started to explode. So we went from 40, 50 to hundreds. And at that time, they're all expecting me to start a church, right? Like, you should start a church. You should start. And when I sit with Father, he's like, we're not starting a church. We're not going down that road. And the thing he said to me was, give it time and let their hearts reveal themselves. So as I just sat without doing anything, people just started to leave because they wanted to find some man or woman that will be the mouthpiece. And I was not going to do that, you know, or play that game. So we were left with about 50 or 60 after all of that, you know, coming and going. And so we got to a point last year where I started to see the love. I was hearing stories of this person's car broke down and this person put money to sort out their car, or this person had a baby and these guys organized a meal plan for this person. Like, and it's not done in an organization. Like, there's no, you know, church email list or something. People are just doing it out of their own heart. And, you know, oh, this person spent 3 hours with this person helping them through this issue, or this one woke up at 1:30 in the morning to go and help this one. And so I was like, man, we're growing up, you know, we're finally growing up. This is awesome. And that was where I felt the Lord really speak to me about how governance and governmental structure will organically find its place if people are growing up. So through that, some of the guys just started to naturally show fathering and mothering instincts, you know, where they'll carry people. Some of them started to share what was going on in their prayer time, or they got woken up and they engaged this. And, you know, so everyone in our crew has not gone through like a mystical journey, but they're somewhere on the bridge of that, you know.
Yeah.
And so this governmental structure has organically started to show up in our community. And there's no title. No one's relating to anyone based on that, because the governmental structure is a function and it's beneficial and it's awesome. But the identity is still, I'm your brother, or I'm your sister, or I'm your, you know, we're all together, you know. So I like to look at it this way, like, we're all family. So sons of God, in the context of family of God, we sit around the dining table, We pass the potatoes, we pass the peas, we talk about the day. We may argue with each other, we may fight with each other, we may not talk to each other for 3 days, but just like my natural sister, even though I'm fighting with her, if we're on the street and something's going to mess with her, I'm the first one in the gap, right, to protect her. And so the family dynamic. But then in the morning, everyone goes about their assignments, and I see the governmental structure really being a part of the assignment. So they go about their thing and put on their own jackets or whatever they need for their assignments. They get things done. We come back at night, take the jackets off because there's no jackets at the dining table, and we're able to talk through things. I had a hard day, I had a bad day, I had a good day, I had a great day, and just a lot of security in that dining table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's powerful because you mentioned something like even the freedom to argue and disagree and might even have a fight, but that doesn't ruin the structure or the relationship itself. Like, because of how non-confrontational so many people are, there's a lot of passive aggressiveness that seeps in the way that a lot of ministries function and operate. And you have things being done to people without anything ever being communicated.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, half the ministry doesn't like you anymore. And you're like, did I do something? I've coached a lot of people to help them like get their hearts right after experiencing that type of stuff. Because like a personal rule of mine is that I don't argue with people I don't know. I just let you have it if I don't know you. Like arguments are for people. Arguments are for family. Like if you have siblings, you get it. Nobody fights more than siblings.
Yeah.
Oh, sibling is like, oh no, that's your brother. No, that's who you're gonna fight the most. Like, especially when you're kids, as soon as mom and dad leave, this is now time for us to enact our own UFC matches. It's time to fight. I don't think your childhood was lived well enough if no one got chased with a knife. I'm exaggerating a little bit. But that's part of family stuff, is that there's even a comfort in being able to argue and disagree safely, right?
Yeah.
No one dies. Everyone's fine. Think about it. When we were kids, you'd get into an argument with someone, maybe even fight, and then an hour later, y'all are playing, and y'all are still best friends.
Yeah.
See y'all tomorrow.
There is something about being able to confront one another, challenge one another, and then comfort one another and bring closure to one another. It's I see the disciples would have been doing that the whole time, and it's awesome. So I totally agree with you there.
Being willing to have uncomfortable conversations at the expense, all for the sake of clarity, because sometimes there isn't really a disagreement. There's a clash of perspectives, and they're really talking about the same stuff, or both of them are right, and it's just an uncomfortable situation.
Yes, totally. And usually in these situations, so much insecurity can get exposed. And that's part of the maturing process, which is totally fine. I mean, I always laugh when some people act like they've never had an issue or they've never walked through, last year, man, so much of my insecurities showed up in a new way, that things I couldn't have faced years ago, I had to face last year. And it's just part of the old programming in the soul, and the fear. And the people that are closest to you get to become partners to walk that out with you, so.
Yeah. It's a necessary part of the journey. It's like, as soon as I feel comfortable, I'm like, okay, I feel good. What are some things that I can't see about myself? So I can start working on those next. I'm like, nah, I don't trust this. What's next? What are my blind spots?
Having family just does that for you, because sometimes you don't even have to ask that question. Like someone comes along and then it's like, oh yeah, okay.
Something that I learned when I was a teenager was like, when it talks about iron sharpening iron, that's a reference to sword fighting. So they're talking about an argument or a clash, because swords actually sharpen themselves in the midst of battle. So you actually your sword leaves sharper after a battle than before. So just like an argument, I reveal your flaws, you reveal a few of mine, and we both go back and reflect afterwards, because it should make us better at the end. Same flaw isn't there the next time.
Totally. And I love it, man. Now I love it, but sometimes I forget that people I'm engaging don't quite love it. Like,
yeah. So what has been, maybe you can talk to this. I'm throwing this out just to see. The journey of learning to trust other people with
Yeah.
your journey.
Yeah, I think one of the early statements that I'd learned was love is given and trust is earned.
Hmm.
And that was something I had to, because we subconsciously, we're trained to think that love and trust are the same thing. So you become a really bad steward of things because you start trusting blindly. You know, you
Yeah.
can love and cover, but you can't trust and cover. Even God Himself is like training us in governance to be able to be trusted
Mm.
more and more and more. And so that was the biggest thing for me in my lessons was I would just open up and I would open up fully. And then some people would, not be trustworthy and it would hurt. Then my natural inclination would be, okay, I'm done. I'll never go deep with anyone again. I'm never going to share my heart with anyone. And as you just journey with God, you journey with Father and Yeshua, that's not an option. And so you start to one of the things that happened to me in 2017, 18, there was a chaotic time in my life for the 4 or 5 years before that. And so there was a guy named Dan Moeller. I don't know if you've ever heard him preach. He's
Yeah.
like Todd White's first pastor. And
Yeah.
he would just convict, his messages would convict me because he'd talk about being love, right? No, you don't learn how to do love. You
Hmm.
don't act loving. You are love. And
Yeah.
that is who you really are. And so why don't you let it out? And during that season, the hardest season of my life, I feel like my soul learned how to pattern according to the love that was already there spiritually. And so now I'm much better at governing those relationships than before,
Yeah.
And I say to people, it's not a matter of whether you're going to get hurt. Like, could it be I get hurt? No, it is going to happen at some point. But
Hmm.
your love now just knows how to cover people so well that you can come into fruitfulness through that.
Yeah. I believe one of the reasons that on large we collectively struggle with being love is because we pretty much, and this is true across the board, how you see God is how you see yourself in some way, shape, or
Hmm.
form.
Yeah.
So since the image of God that most of us are trained in isn't necessarily love, we don't have an image of love to pattern ourselves after.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. And the love, even though people say, yeah, love of God, yeah, it's such a conditional and performance-based thing that it's not actually love, but it's just we attribute that. But yeah, totally agree with you.
Yeah. And even I've even found this to be true in some cases where people are comfortable with the idea of loving God,
Yeah.
but not the love your neighbor aspect, which is I think a bit more important because
Yeah.
it's like it's easy to love someone that you think loves you. It's more
Yes.
applicable when dealing with people that straight up don't like you.
Yes.
And
Totally.
not even people that you might have done anything to. Maybe they just don't like you. There's nothing you can do about it. How do you
Yeah.
love people who don't want your love, who don't want to love you? Because that's not where they're
Yeah.
at yet.
Yeah.
But
And
with
if you
God, it's
have
like,
become
oh,
love,
yeah,
yeah, if you have become love, then that's who you are, no matter what's coming back at you.
yeah,
And that's one of the ways I found that I hadn't fully accepted becoming love is that I still had these things in my head and my heart towards people that didn't reciprocate the way I wanted them to.
yeah,
And that was a big journey for me. Yeah.
yeah. And that's a journey I've been on for forever because something I've maintained forever, like I've done a good job at stewarding, is that I never want to bleed on people who didn't cut me.
Yeah.
So it's like I believe in have your emotions until you don't have your emotions. Just don't act on your emotions.
Mm.
So it's like, yeah, I had this uncomfortable situation. This person made me mad. I'm mad right now. I'm not going to be mad forever. I'll forgive
Yeah.
them when I'm done being mad. But I
Yeah.
will be done being mad. Maybe it might take
Yeah.
me a week, but I'm be done being mad, and then we're good.
Yeah,
Like
man.
processing the emotions, um, forgiving them when you actually can forgive them. Because saying it alone doesn't necessarily get it out the heart. That's a good exercise, but I can say I've had to forgive people multiple times until it finally stuck. I'm like, I think about it. Simple trick. to know if you've forgiven someone. When you think about them, does it still feel negative? Yeah, that's kind of how that works. If you still feel bad when you think about them, you still got to forgive a little bit. So
Yeah.
uh, that's been a journey even I've had to undergo at different stages, but I've made sure to never take my frustrations out on people who had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Because
That's
we end
good,
up
man.
self-sabotaging because certain things are in our heart. We don't trust the next person because of the last person. But I'm like, well, this person didn't do it.
Yeah.
So changing a little bit, if you could talk a bit on how you've been able to steward the wisdom and revelations that you've gotten from your time with God, uh, and handling those messages or those truths when dealing with the public, dealing with the masses.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it is important to know your tribe and who you are called to. Like Jesus is very conscious of the people he's called to. All throughout his walk on the earth, he knows the season, the time, and who he's called to. And then we see Paul, as he's maturing, knows who he's called to. Peter, there's a tribe he's called to. And I think we all have a tribe we are called to, which is really important to recognize. And so as the chaos happened in my life, that was my training on who I wasn't called to and the part of the bridge that I wasn't called to. So, for example, like I'm very animated in my expressions and I can get loud and I can get, excited. And I'd have people say to me, I don't like your tone. I don't like, I don't like how you're saying that. And I'm like, I'm not angry. I'm just excited. Like it might be my Indian upbringing, but the European style was very flatline. And so I remember being ashamed, like, God, why did you make me like this? Like, I get too excited. I'm so loud and I make silly jokes. And I remember going through that phase till I started to find these people that were attracted to the same thing that was repelling these people. And suddenly they're like, I love how animated you are. I love your silly jokes. And I was like, what's going on? And that began my understanding of, like we're parts of a body, but there are certain parts of a body you are always going to be closer to. Like the finger
Yeah.
is always going to be closer to the palm than the chest, and that's okay. That's part of divine design. And so I started to spend time asking Father, who is my tribe? Who are my people? Who are you calling me to? I want to carry them in my heart. I want to know them. I want to love them and be able to walk with them. And that really made things easy for me as the journey continued. So 2020, I knew who I was speaking to. I was okay with my language. I was okay with being rejected by anyone else because I could start to see the purpose behind the whole thing,
That's powerful. One of the ways that I present it is like dealing with a puzzle. Like if we're all a part of the body of Christ, let's say Christ's body is a puzzle, there's pieces that'll never connect because they're not supposed to.
Yeah. Yep.
Two corner pieces, none of the corner pieces know each other in a puzzle.
Yeah.
Still part of the same picture.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, man. Exactly like that. So I've walked with a lot of people now, helping them get clarity on that, find your tribe, walk with your tribe. And yeah, I think that's a powerful thing.
What would you say is, I guess, the posture or the pathway that you've used to engage higher forms of wisdom and revelation?
So just on my journey, I know, we're all I think I would say you're much deeper mystically on all of this, but I never realized how much I had been engaging wisdom and prudence in my life till probably in the last year and a half, where I started to see like people have always said to me, "Oh, I love the wisdom. I love the wisdom. There's so much wisdom," and I'm like, "What?" For years. But over the last year and a half, I've started to not necessarily. I've not seen wisdom, the being, but I've started to have more understanding of all the interactions that I've had and the things that I've built engaging wisdom and seeing the fruit of it. And so I'm still in that uncovering process of how much I have been engaging wisdom and prudence. It's just going deeper now in seeing it, so
Yeah, because you walk in it heavily. Like, of course, like wisdom herself is with you a lot. Like it radiates from you. That's the thing. That's the benefit of family, is that we see things in other people, or other people see stuff in us that we don't notice a lot.
Wow. Oh, thanks for sharing that. So I'm on that journey now of having these different experiences, and but the crazy thing is, like, I'm seeing how much they've always been in my life, just unintentionally or not fully understanding it like I am now.
Mhm. Yeah, something that I teach is that if you pay attention to your childhood, most of us do in sonship what we tried to do as a kid.
Mm.
So we see all the codings of what we really carried in our childhood, which I also think that's why so many attacks happen when you're a kid, is to get you out of your
Sure.
pattern.
Yeah, makes
So
sense.
my advice to the audience is ask the question, try to remember, what was I trying to do as a kid? It's like I can say I comfortably do everything I wanted to do as a kid. It just
Yeah.
doesn't look anywhere like what I thought I wanted as a kid, but I do everything. It's like I wanted to be a veterinarian, help animals, talk to animals. I've raised animals from the dead. Like this is my thing, you know? I was like, hey, look, kid me got to do it anyway. For free. I didn't have to go to school for it.
Yeah. Amazing.
So this has been fantastic. I kind of want to just open the floor for a few minutes for you to give any last bits of advice or wisdom or encouragement to the audience that you might have on your heart.
Yeah, man, this has been great. Thank you. It's great getting to know you, and I'm sure we're going to get to know each other more and more. And I love your heart for freedom, the freedom of expression, and the desire to see family grow and everyone move into their governmental authority, which I think is awesome. So I just want to honor you for that, man. It's legit. And I know you've probably paid a price to come to this place, and some of that might have been lonely, but you're going to move into deeper family realms and more people coming around you, which I'm very excited about, you know. And so thank you for having me on. And for anyone listening, my thoughts would just be around, you know, I find we can find contentment in God and who we are in God, and then fulfillment in the divine expression of that. And so your purpose, your scroll, why you are here matters so much. And there are people waiting on you, and they don't even know they're waiting on you till they see you in your fullness and recognize that they've been waiting on you. And so I just want to encourage everyone listening to give themselves wholly to their current assignment, whatever their current assignment looks like. However small, however big you think it is, it's very important, you know. And so, like, for example, David is looking after these sheep and he's having these encounters with God. And then the current assignment of being diligent and just looking after sheep, as he's engaging that, he's maturing into the next phase. And there is a bear, and there's a lion, and there's a sandwich delivery, and on the sandwich delivery meet a giant. And it's like, as you give yourself to what's in front of you, the path will play out. And I just want to encourage people to do that, because it's easy to pull back, and when you pull back you can really slow things down. But as a body, as a family, in this time especially, we need you. Like, I need you as a brother. I need you where you need to be. So I just want to encourage you all listening to move holistically and wholeheartedly into your current assignment. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And where can people connect with you? Or if you have any books or any projects out, where can they find them?
Yeah, I mean, on social media is the easiest, Joseph Wilson, or I am Joseph Wilson. And I have a website, iamjosephwilson.com. That's the easiest place to connect with me. And yeah, I'd love to connect with people and meet people. So that's the best way to do that.
Awesome. So y'all be sure to give Joseph his content a look. He's doing a great work in New Zealand. He has my support. So at least give him a check out, see what he's doing. And if it resonates with you, connect with him. But that concludes this episode of The Inner. Until next time, y'all be blessed. Later.